Hey, welcome back. This is going to be the third primer in the little series of primers that I'm doing today, which all lead to the first video in a series of videos that I'm doing on the esoteric sciences. And we're going to cover a lot. We're going to go very in depth into this stuff. But I want you to take a look because this is going to be very important here. I want you to understand what this depiction of Michelangelo's painting is actually depicting. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard one of the layers of the esoteric understanding of this picture here, and that you see God there depicted as the old man, and he's inside of what is a bisected brain right there. That's what he's flying in. That was Michelangelo's intent, is that represents a brain, okay? This will all make sense, excuse me, when we get more in depth into this. Now, Adam's sitting on a rock right there, okay? And the rock that he's sitting on has an involutionary slope. You could call it a slippery slope, because the slope of involution is a slippery slope if you don't turn the corner when you're about to bottom out, okay? It's a slippery slope. It's a highway to hell, okay, essentially, and that'll make sense. So your involutionary arc goes from that left side downward, and it forms a V, okay? And what God's doing here is he's reaching his finger out, but if you notice, Adam's finger is kind of limp. They're actually not touching. Adam needs to put in effort. He needs to connect that chain. God's doing his part, but man has to do his part as well. So remember, Adam represents man on the involutionary slope, okay? And where we're at right now in time, after the mystery of Golgotha happened, after Christ appears here on earth, that then turns the corner historically for humanity, and now the mysteries of the ancient world are open to everyone, okay? So that's what that symbolizes, but man has to put in effort himself. And Adam's sitting here on the rock, basically on the rock right at the bottom before the corner turns. He's still on the involutionary slope. Okay, that's when, because we're spiritual beings, and we took material form as we came down the gradations from the God mind up in heaven, okay? But if you know the myth of Cain and Abel, and if you know the esoteric understanding of that, our consciousness was not always the same as it is right now. Our consciousness also evolved, and our human form evolved as well. We didn't always look like we do right now, this sacred geometric pattern that we are. We weren't always that. Okay, we went through long periods of evolution, and our body has changed many forms, and so has our mind. But in the incarnation into matter, we incarnated with a left-brained imbalance. And this has to do with the Luciferic element and how they guided man into physical bodies. They're called the angels of death. Not in the way that we think of death, though. It's the opposite, because it's spiritual death. The bodily form is spiritual death to the spirit. The spirit has to give up something of itself in order to take bodily form. Okay, so that's what death means. Life is actually death to the spirit. That's why Plato says the body is the sepulcher of the soul. This all has to do with our true history and where we come from. And we come from the cosmos. And we come down and we incarnate in various degrees till we take on this solid physical form. And then we begin to evolve, and that's the evolutionary arc. It's the other side of the V. But man has to put in effort, or else he will continue down the slippery slope on a highway to hell. And that's what these materialists are actually doing, like people like, say, Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and all these guys who want to make machine bodies for us. They're still they're still playing out the involutionary descent, okay? We're supposed to turn the corner and regain the Michael brain. You know, Michael slays Lucifer. Lucifer's the left brain. Cain is the left brain, okay? And Cain was progeny of Lucifer, if you understand the esoteric meaning of Genesis, okay? Cain was the progeny of Lucifer, the Luciferic, and then Cain slays Abel. He slays the right imaginative side of the brain so we can incarnate. Before, we lived, when we were up in the spiritual worlds, we didn't have a sense of oneness with ourselves. We didn't have individuality. We were essentially part of a group organism. When we involved ourselves in matter, then we gained individuality. We gained that I amness about ourselves. But we lost something in that process. We lost that imaginative, intuitive brain, which we completely lived in before we gained the left logical function of the brain, which we gained in the involution into matter. So we lost our imaginative to gain the sense of I am, the individuality. But now, as we turn that evolutionary arc, we're going to regain our imaginative, intuitive function, but we're going to hold on to our logical function. So see, the fact that we lost it to involve, or the involution, was worth it because we gained individuality. Now we're going to turn the corner. Sorry about that. Now we're going to turn the corner and regain our right imaginative side in conjunction with our logical side. So we're going to gain a new form of consciousness. This is what this is all about. It's talking about this in the Bible. It's talking about this in all sacred scriptures. It's not just that, but that's one part of the evolution that we go through. We also go through bodily evolution, spiritual evolution, and they're all tied together. They're all linked together like a chain, okay? They can't be separated. They all follow the same pattern. But what Adam has to do here is he has to try. He has to lift his finger, or else he's going to keep going down that slippery slope to hell. Okay? And that why God is in a right side of the brain is because that represents the Michael side. This is what Steiner calls it. Gaining the Michael consciousness, or the Michael imagination. Okay? So Michael slays Lucifer, right? We've all seen the depictions of Michael slaying Lucifer. That's Michael slaying the left portion of the brain to then overtake it so we can go on the next leg of our evolution, okay? So first Cain slays Abel. That's the left side of the brain slaying the right side. It does that so it can gain individuality. Then Michael slays Lucifer. So that's Michael, the right imaginative side, spearing the left side and then overtaking him in dominance, overtaking the left brain in dominance. What we want to do is balance them out perfectly, okay? And that will happen through the long chain of evolution, but the initiate can take a shortcut, essentially. If you can pull the sword from the stone, the cross that Christ was crucified on, and go straight upward and transmute those lower energies into higher ones, those lower base desires into lofty spiritual ideals, then the path of the initiate is straight up, and you don't have to go the long way of evolution. But this is what this is depicting. That's why it's a right brain. Usually God is faced the other way in profile, and that has deep symbolic meaning, and we will cover that in the later videos tonight, but I just want to give a good base on what this means. You have to have it helps. I guess you don't have to, but it helps to have a good understanding of Steiner and Max Heindel's teachings and really understand the process of alchemy and the myths, the mythologies and whatnot. If you don't, it won't make a lot of sense to you. And if you haven't gone into the depths of Rosicrucianism yet, then some of this may not make sense either, but I would recommend reading Steiner and Heindel. And I've got some readings of them on my page there in a different playlist. So go ahead and check those out if you want to familiarize yourself with it a little bit. And that's it for this one. I'm going to make one more primer, and it's going to be a reading of Jacob Boehme, his the way he describes creation and the process of God creating things into matter. Okay, so that's going to do it for this one. Just try to remember these concepts because it's going to be really important when we cover the stuff later. All right, take care, everyone. We'll talk later. Bye-bye now.